On behalf of the Georgia Alliance and Star Wars collectors everywhere, it is my pleasure to introduce two former Kenner employees, Mr. Tim Effler and Mr. Doug Miller. Gentlemen, how are we doing this evening?
Great. Thank you.
Doing great.
Well, guys, most people might not know, but you guys have been a big help, influence of the club, the Georgia club, the clubs all across the country, the Empire State, the California club. You guys have come on, given your time in the past, and I appreciate you taking the time again with us tonight. But for those of the viewers out there that have not met you, let's maybe just give a brief description of what you did for the Star Wars hobby and just basically, your toy industry life. Tim, maybe let's start with you.
Okay, sure. Well, I had two tenures at Kenner. The first one was starting in, I guess it was 75 through 78. And then I came back in like 81 till 92 or whatever, about 15 years. And splitting that into, I was probably a director of product concepts, or actually preliminary design, advanced concepts, wore a number of hats as director. And as far as Star Wars goes, I was involved in the first wave, focusing on primarily the large figures and the Death Star playset, pop bags. And then I came back in 81 and kind of got creative control of the line at that time as it was kind of simmering down.
And outside of Star Wars, I mean, your career has spanned the toy industry beyond that. I mean, maybe just quick points of some other things you've done.
Oh yeah, well, everything, whatever brand we were working on, I was involved in. I touched all those brands, from Ghostbusters to Beetlejuice to Care Bears, Strawberry Shortcake, and my last hurrah was probably Jurassic Park. That was I was the champion of the Jurassic Park toy line.
So if it was Kenner and coming out of Cincinnati, you pretty much had your hands involved in it.
Yeah, some parts of it more than others, but yes, that's true.
Well, fantastic. Doug, what about yourself? How are you involved in Star Wars and then just the toy industry, or just your career in general?
Yeah. Well, I was a graduate of University of Cincinnati Industrial Design. Like most of the majority of the people at Kenner. Didn't work for Kenner as an intern, but first design job, I designed floats down in New Orleans, and didn't like that. And then I designed doors and windows. And I went from doors and windows to Kenner as a junior designer. And I was there from 79 to 82, worked on the Star Wars stuff. I worked on, not a lot of Star Wars stuff, but some fun stuff, was all Empire Strikes Back. And then I went to Fisher Price, was there for about 3 years. Then I went to Tonka, and that's where I got into management and became the head of R&D there. And then kind of hooked back with Kenner when Tonka bought Kenner. Then I went from Tonka to Rollerblade. And I worked for Rollerblade. Then I went to Solomon, the ski company. I did inline skates and shoes there, lived in France for a while. And then came back to the U.S., opened an office in Colorado. And then I went back to Fisher Price for about 14 years and became a VP of product development there. And then my last toy job was here in Atlanta with Kids 2. And Tim and I, we hooked up again here in Atlanta. We worked together at Kenner, and now I'm just kind of doing some consulting and flying airplanes and driving sports cars.
Well, I mean, you guys have really just kind of been around, seen it all, done it all, and really influenced childhoods. Us collectors are basically, just big kids, right? So we're still trying to relive those dreams of playing with the toys.
Sure,
and on behalf of everyone,
Yeah.
I got to say, I really appreciate it. So for those of the people out there watching, you guys have been involved in some of the club stuff in the past. We've actually done one of these interviews. We do some Saturday chats that you guys have been involved in, which are just a ton of fun. I want to kind of take this a little different direction. This is not your typical Disney or Hasbro sanctioned panel. This is just the three of us hanging out and you guys talking to the collectors that, you know, love the work that you guys have done. So you guys have told some stories, and I want to kind of expand on some of that. So first up, and I think it's always something that's kind of the softball question that's always on people's minds. Toyetic, right? Was always a pitch and a key word. Was there anything that you guys designed, like the pitch that got away? What was something that you thought had toyetic value that you loved and just, you know, didn't quite make it? Tim, we'll start with you. You seem to have something on the brain there.
Well, I think as we talked before, there's so many of these kind of things that were just so wonderful, especially a lot of the things that we created in-house. I think I mentioned before that, you know, Kenner was really known for doing licensed product, but the primary goal was really to develop our own internal properties, our own internal IP, because you could control it. You could control its destiny. You wouldn't have to, you know, be at the mercy of your licensor or the royalties that incurred from, you know, being a franchise partner in a property. So we were always creating stuff in-house, and so little of that really happened. I think most of your collectors will be familiar with the Mask. That was a line that was created in-house. Howard Bollinger, and he actually created that with the preliminary design model shop. He had the model shop guys working for him because I and the rest of his staff were working on, you know, things that had to be addressed, from Star Wars to Ghostbusters or whatever other lines we had on the burners. So he actually used the resources of the model shop, the creative aspect of that, to develop that line, which was really pretty amazing. So there are so many items too that never happened that I thought were great. I don't even know where to start. I'm going to defer to Doug, and if I come up with something or think of something that you know, we really could talk about, I'll jump back in. But yeah, there's just so much. Right. I think people have a hard time understanding how much stuff, how many rocks we flipped over every week, every day. I mean, there's so many ideas. I'll see a sketch or I'll see something now from 40 years ago, and I'm like, oh yeah, you know, oh yeah, I don't remember doing that drawing, but yeah, I did that, right? Whatever. So there's so much volume there. It's just hard to imagine the amount of creative stuff that just went through the mill there, you know?
Doug, is there that one item that you just continuously go back to and think about that you wish would have gone to full production, be it Star Wars or a rollerblade concept? I don't know.
Yeah, you know, there was one item. I'll do an item because I like Tim. There's from all the companies I worked at, there's a bunch of the products that didn't make it. But there was an item at Kenner that I was into guns and stuff, you know, and at that time, it was hard to sell guns. They were starting to, you know, I grew up on toys and machine guns and Mattel Zero M stuff, and we had an inventor concept that came in, and it was this concept that shot Play-Doh. And I worked in the Play-Doh group, and normally Play-Doh was pretty boring, but this was it was something that shot a wad of Play-Doh, and it had a working name called the Wad Rod, and yeah, I was really into it. I mean, I wanted to make this gun that you loaded up with Play-Doh. It's kind of pre-Nerf guns, and it just got shot down. You know, it was really cool though. And I tried to steal it, but they had to send it back to the inventor. And I think we had a contract where anything we had developed, we had to send back to the inventor, and they got all our development stuff. And I don't even remember who the inventor was because the inventions came through Prelim. And this particular thing, I don't know if Prelim didn't want to work on it, but they sent it down to the Play-Doh guys. I was one of them. And so I used to pop up over our office partitions and shoot people in the face with it. And It would have been cool. I think it would have sold really well. It was pretty safe too. It really didn't. I mean, you could shoot somebody in the eye and it didn't hurt them because it just shot this little round ball of Play-Doh, and it was kind of neat. That's the
Okay,
Kenner
now
one
you
I
got
remember.
now you got me going on guns. So now that you've fed me something, a thread to go on, I can talk about guns. So there was this concept I had that we worked on for a while, and I was really crazy about it. It was called really big guns. And what this was, and imagine just most outrageous. These things were like 3 feet long, and they looked like they weighed a ton because they had all this crap hanging all over them, and mechanism and stuff. But they really just imagine a blow molded gun that looks really big. But what's interesting about this is that the bolt, you know how you pull back a bolt on a rifle or whatever, and then you fire the clip, the clip or whatever. Well, what we did on this one is the bolt, you slammed it forward, okay? And what you were doing is you were taking a weight that was inside, like a 2-pound weight, and you were putting it to the nose of the gun. So these things now are heavy, just to lift it up, because you know how it is that a real heavy gun, you got to pull it up like that because it's heavy, for a kid. It's, and then when you pulled the trigger, that weight was on a spring. It would come flying back into your shoulder. So you get this, so the weight of the gun completely changed. And they would go up in the air, and you got a really great sound as it clapped back in the back of the rifle. And it was just so cool because he looked so big, and he had a great sound and a great action. But, guns just weren't going anywhere at the time, before Super Soaker. So, but yeah, really big guns. So thank you for reminding me of that, Doug. Yeah.
Yeah, Super Soaker and Nerf really brought stuff back that for a long time just went away. It was politically, you couldn't do it. They wouldn't let you do guns. And it was, I know Mattel did a thing and it looked like an RPG. And up at Fisher Price, we used to shoot it at Power Wheels. The people would be out testing the Power Wheels, and we would see if we could hit it with this thing. It would shoot a big projectile. It was like Nerf on steroids. It shot a thing that was probably a foot long and about 3 inches in diameter, and looked like a rocket. It was like a Nerf RPG. And I'm getting a leg cramp. Sorry, sitting in the wrong kind of chair. But they were just verboten for a long time in the industry.
So you guys talk about these ideas that you were talking about Play-Doh, and they would kind of send this idea around and back and forth. One of the conversations we've had in the past is about the KENNER morgue and some of the stories that come out of the KENNER morgue, and just some of the crazy ideas, and just you guys working on an idea for maybe a couple hours or a couple days, and then it just basically gets dumped. You guys maybe want a quick preface of what the morgue was, or kind of what that process was like, and then any interesting stories you guys might have of just some wild, wacky ideas that got thrown around and then dumped.
Like I said, there's so many of them. Yeah. Well, I can tell you that there were some things that we would never do as toys, but we were always doing crazy things in the office. Speaking of guns again, there was the blowgun period where one of the engineers, I want to think it was Mike Ledger possibly, somebody, or maybe even Dale Goldberg, my prior boss. You always had material from the top floating around, like
Excuse me.
extruded tubing. You had a 3/4 inch extruded tube of styrene or ABS, and you would use that in model building or whatever. The shop would use that. But you'd cut a 18-inch section of that off, and then you take a push pin and wrap a paper cone around the back of that push pin and tape it off. And it created a really effective blowgun with basically a pin tip on it. And these things are so powerful, we could put them into the side of a metal filing cabinet. So it was a really dangerous thing. And we would shoot these things all over the office. It was crazy. And, it was just that kind of stuff. I can remember when we were starting to look at RC, somebody took a baby alive and strapped it to the top of one of the RC chassis. and then somebody was driving it, and everybody else was standing around trying to shoot at it with their blowgun darts, see if they could hit it. You know, it was insane. Not to mention a test I did with an engineer, Tom Sunderman, on the $6 Million Man testing the parachute. We took to the top of the old Kenner building on Sycamore Street. You could get out on the roof there. It was about 4 stories up, and we dropped it off the roof, and it failed. The parachute didn't open, and that thing just hit. It was just, we couldn't get off the roof. We were laughing so hard. We crawled off the roof, and but that thing hit the parking lot down below, and it just exploded, and plastic pieces went everywhere. It was wonderful. It was beautiful. Thank God no cars were parked too closely to it, because the shrapnel from the explosion of this figure hitting the ground was pretty amazing. And we were just, you know, laughing like crazy. And obviously that was a big fail, and we didn't go forward with that. But it was a valid experiment.
Tim, it's interesting you bring up failing. We have just had a massive failure on the Facebook side, from what I'm hearing from Mark right now. Facebook has kind of crapped the bed on us. It's nothing on our end, and it's apparently Mark's fine on his end. It's just the stream is skipping, apparently. So I think what we're going to do here is we're going to take a quick couple minutes. So anybody that's out there watching live, just this live stream is going to go down. Give us just a few minutes. You'll see the live stream pop back up. For anybody on YouTube, hopefully all of this will get cut out. But gentlemen, Tim, Doug, just bear with us here real quick. Facebook, okay, apparently we're just coming with too many great stories here. I don't know what's going on. But guys, if you're watching us live, give us about 3 to 4 minutes. We're gonna figure out the situation. And Mark's saying he might have figured it out. I don't know. Are we gonna cut? What are we doing here? All right. Well, just like that, miraculous television. I think Mark has fixed everything. We'll see if he comes back to me here in a couple seconds. But guys, that kind of took me out of the whole thing. Yeah, Doug. I'm very sorry, Tim. Doug, that really took me out of everything that was going on.
No problem.
Tim, can you paraphrase again real quick the last story you just told? I think people on Facebook, it was like so choppy. We were basically getting reports that it was coming in so choppy they couldn't really follow anything that was going on.
Okay, I'll rewind back to our blowgun dart. I don't know if that's far enough or not. But
yeah, that's perfect.
There was a period of time where we had these, and just about every designer engineer had one of these things, and they were really effective. I mean, and we really loved the aluminum tipped. Aluminum push pins that had a 3/4 inch shaft on them, because that needle would go into just about anything pretty deep, and they were really awesome. I mean, it was really great, and they got modified with actually plastic cones on the back because the paper would collapse after a while. So somebody figured out how to add a plastic cone from wood. That's another story. I won't go into the depth of that. But anyhow, they were really reliable, and it was just so much fun. I think I still have one around here. It was just one of the coolest.
So I mean, that's something that like clearly wasn't getting pitched to like actual production. You were going to sell these to children, right?
No, but it's like the creativity of you wouldn't go for any of that kind of creativity. I remember, and you would explore stuff. I remember I was looking at. I was really fascinated. Maybe 30 years ago, somebody came out with these inflatable blimps that you could drive around. You get a can of gas and a can of helium or whatever, and pump one of these things up. And they had small electric motors, and you can actually, it was RC. You could drive it around So we were driving these things around the studio, and it was just really cool to see one of these things kind of just cruise by you or whatever. And I did this whole thing where I did turned it into a docking station where I put a piece of Velcro on the nose of it, and then did like a docking tower graphic on one of the walls. And the whole idea was see if you could drive your blimp, your airship into the corresponding Velcro on the wall to see if you could moor it, which was really kind of a really hard challenge actually, but it was a lot of fun to do. And then the other story I started talking about, or was talking about, was the parachute for the $6 million man, the large, 12-inch $6 million man. It was just a total fail, but just so much fun. Just dropping this thing off the side of the building, off the roof, 4 stories up, and watching it just shatter into 100 pieces when it hit the parking lot. And just, that's what you did. We just did stuff like that all the time. There was an off-road skateboard this is way before anybody even thought of this, but we thought of doing an off-road skateboard. It had 6-inch wheels, tire wheels, and it was probably, I don't know, 4 feet long. And we took it out to one of the parks and did some testing on it, and people were falling off about killing themselves. Well, this will never happen. And we, so we shelved that. And, that's a thing now. You can get these big, off-road.
It's a hot item these days. It's a hot ticket.
I mean, we were all over that. We spent a lot of time. The engineers love that one because that's more of an engineering project, trying to figure out what kind of suspension and wheels you need for something like that. And it was really cool. But we just figured, nope, somebody's going to kill themselves, and we don't want to be responsible. So let's get out of this. Yeah, a lot of those things.
Doug, anything you remember seeing or being a part of that was just should have gone straight in the dump, but you guys spent some time on like designing crazy, wacky, wild ideas that you guys had?
Juggle. I became a pretty good juggler at Kenner. There were a lot of jugglers at Kenner, and it was, it's funny, the all-terrain skateboard, we ended up making one of those at Fisher Price. We sold it. I mean, it was for, preschoolers. So you kind of go, wow, but we had battery-powered cars up there that we had 3-year-olds driving, and you think, well, that's safe. You got a 3-year-old driving a car. Other stuff, maybe not toy stuff. I remember we duct taped a person into their chair and put them on the elevator and pressed all the buttons so they went up they went to the top of the Kroger building and all the way down, and they were duct taped and gagged, and so they couldn't talk. I can't remember who that was. I mean, literally, the guy. I mean, it was he was. I think it was his birthday, and it might have been Tom Beaumont. There used to be a lot of practical jokes. I remember coming back, and a couple of the engineers had offices, the designers had cubes, and somebody had figured out how to move the office panels. And this one engineer went on vacation. When he came back, they had removed his door and had put an office panel in. So he had no door. He couldn't get into his office. And it was like his office had just vanished. And I can't remember who it was. It was he walked around for about 20 minutes, and then he kind of started crying. And then I think he went and talked to his boss, and I think they finally said, "Oh, your office is there. We just have to put the door back." And then one other time, we were in my group, we were making this. They were trying to get at a younger age product at Kenner. And we made these things called plain spoons. And it was a dish to put baby food in. And then the spoons look like airplanes. So you dip up the food, and, they'd fly the airplane into the kid's mouth. Well, they had gotten a bunch of first shots of these spoons. And they were small. They were maybe, 3 inches wide, their wingspan. And they had got them in a bunch of different colors, and then they found out they couldn't use them. There was some kind of heavy element in the plastic. So there was like 5,000 of these, maybe 10,000 of these spoons. And they filled a guy's office up with them. So he came, opened his door, and he had spoons that were about 4 feet tall in the office. So it was just solid spoons. And there was a lot of that. I'll save another one, another practical joke that we did, because I'll let Tim talk about it a little bit, but I got another practical. My favorite one I played on somebody that you if somebody did something to you, you'd have to get back at them, but you had to do nonviolent. It had to be not constructive.
That's actually interesting. You bring that up because we get into this in one of our last live chats, and it had to do with Toy Fair, and I'm sure Toy Fair has just a ton of great stories of you guys, contributing to Toy Fair and things of that nature. I want to go to the opposite side though. Toy Fair. One thing I found interesting is I don't know if pride is the right word, but the fact that you guys, there was like this almost back and forth between toy companies where you guys were pitching other toy designers and not pitching them, I'm sorry, showing behind the scenes kind of other toy designers what you're working on. And it's I guess it would be prideful, right? But also kind of in a fun manner, it seemed like, right? Like there was kind of a jab back and forth of, you're just doing that. Well, I'm over here doing this kind of thing. You know, how were those toy fairs? Like, how was that environment for up and coming or well established, designers, right? And you guys are with Kenner, or you guys are at the top of your craft. And is there anything kind of fun, maybe without telling too much out of school, but is there anything fun, toy fair stories, company to company, or just some fun stuff that happened within Kenner at some of these events?
Well, that was kind of the thing you did as kind of a respectful nod to your counterparts at other toy companies, where we would trade tours. So we weren't really. I mean, if you think about it, Toy Fair is, especially now, or well, whatever it is now, but is not a selling show. That happens at pre-Toy Fair. Toy Fair is when the trade goes public with what they're going to be, what's coming out. So that's why you see the news people come in, the media's all over it. Here's the new toys. So to some extent, you're not revealing anything, too new to any. I mean, it's too late to knock it off. Basically, I mean, you can, but it would really require a lot of somersaults to do. So it's really a courtesy that you're doing for your contemporaries at the other companies, and it was a really nice thing. So the showrooms are supposed to be closed to your competitors. Naturally, they should be, but we would always do reciprocal tours with our counterparts, and it was more out of a respect, and it was just a friendly thing. You'd take them through and you'd show them what you were doing, and then they'd say, "Yeah, come by. And nobody's going to be in here about this time. It's a good time to come by." And so they would give you a tour, and they'd tell you, "Don't tell anybody who you are," or whatever. So there was kind of all that kind of like mystery to it or whatever, but or espionage flavor to it. But it really wasn't that bad, But it was just a friendly thing to do, and it was really sad that quit happening some time ago. But yeah.
So it was just a really a mutual show of respect between counterparts of different industries.
Well, you're educating. I mean, there is a seriousness to it because now you are aware completely of what they've got planned. So it's educating you. It's bringing you to some level that you wouldn't necessarily be at had you not seen it. So you are revealing something about a strategy and stuff, which can be a problem. And I think that's why the management would recognize that and certainly frown on it or whatever.
It was, but it was, I used to love it because you were showing something that maybe you worked on for a year and a half. And sometimes you knew the people you were showing it to. At that time, Toy Fair, I mean, there was a lot of hype for the product, a lot of special effects. I remember we did most of the time that I was at Toy Fair, it was either with Tonka or Fisher Price because I was a director of VP, so you got to go and you were involved in the presentations. But Toy Fair was a big party too. There was a lot of partying, a lot of drinking. And I remember the back then it was WWF wrestlers, and we had wrestler buddies, and we had these wrestlers, and they were the scariest people I've ever seen. They were zonked on drugs, and they're promoting the toy. Those guys were creepy. I remember Macho Man, and oh man, a couple of them were they were creepy. and they kept sending me in to be kind of their handler. That was kind of weird. The best parties, Spin Master and Bang Zoom used to have the best parties at Toy Fair. Looks like I just froze. No, I guess I didn't freeze. Yeah, Spin Master parties, and the parties were there'd be parties, and all the toy people would go to the parties. It didn't matter what company. You'd see people from Mattel, Hasbro, Fisher Price, Spin Master, at Kenner Days. Everybody would be at the parties, and there'd be the inventors were all in town, so you'd have inventor parties. They were always fun to party with. Bang Zoom's an invention firm that's in Cincinnati, and it was it was a big deal. This goes back to when it was over. When it wasn't just in the Javits Center, there were toy building, actually two buildings, and there were a lot of people had permanent showrooms in the buildings, and it was neat. I mean, it had a lot of history, and now it's I think condos. But then Javits came, and all the little guys would be over in Javits, so you'd go over to Javits, and then you'd always figure out for what night it was, where the party was, and there was just a. I remember some just epic Spin Master parties. There was some bar that they threw a party at that had they had these giant aquariums, and they had women in bathing suits that looked like mermaids that were swimming in the aquarium. And I can't remember. There was somebody, I think he was a Hasbro guy, dove into the aquarium, and I think they called the police when that happened. And but they, just these epic parties in New York in the middle of February, and the weather was always crappy. It's always raining or snowing.
Yes, the Spin Master parties were always the best parties in recent history. But Hasbro Mattel had fantastic parties, back in the '80s and stuff too. When things were working, well for those companies, they would blow out parties, and money spent on these parties would just blow you away. The Spin Master parties are the best, really, because they invited everybody. The competitors, everybody was invited to those parties, and they were really special. They were really great.
And people would be looking for jobs elsewhere, and there was it's just and you'd see a lot of mix of very high up people. I remember I remember there was one Spin Master party. We were staying at the what used to be the Helmsley Hotel, and I don't know what the name of it. It was she died and they changed the name. But Sam Kinison, remember him? The guy that used to scream, the comedian that died. He was staying at our hotel, and he ended up going to a party with a bunch of us. We went to I can't remember whose party it was. So, and he's wearing his trench coat. He dressed like when you saw him out in the real world, that's the way the guy dressed, and he talked the same way, he screamed at you. He went up and was partying, and I remember the president of president of Fisher Price was drinking at the bar at one of the parties. So you'd get this big mix. I mean, you'd have people that you would not normally bend an elbow with, but afterwards, and it was kind of the end. It was the last big hurrah for that toy year. And as Tim said, you weren't really selling stuff. It was more a PR, PR event, and but it was fun. I mean, you'd been working on this stuff for a long time, and it was crazy. There was a lot of at Kenner, during the time I was at Kenner, there was a lot of partying and a lot of drinking. And a lot of, I liked it because I was young and single, and there were a huge number of young and single women at Kenner at the time. It was a big group of people that, generally in an age range between about early 20s to late 30s. That was generally the age range. There were some older dudes, but they were all directors or VPs. But and you had like similar interests, and there was a lot of partying, a lot of afterwork.
I mean, you guys were the up and comers and like pioneers, you know, really kind of this industry of the toy stuff. And it sounds like, actually, I guess I'm curious to know, did Toy Fair change from those Kenner Hasbro days to then, like, did you guys like, Tim, did you take Pirates of the Caribbean to Toy Fair? Was that something that happened?
Well, I worked on Pirates of the Caribbean for, what was the name of the toy company that did it? I had my own product development company, Soda Design.
Yep.
With Jim Swearingen and Tom Osborne, and we did Pirates of the Caribbean for what was the name of the company? Out of Chicago.
So, out of Chicago, VTech.
Yeah, they. I forget the name, but that's who.
Or was it?
One of the last action figure lines I worked on actually was
Yeah.
Pirates. I still have my control drawings for those action figures actually. And we actually won a Toady. A Toady is kind of like the Oscars for toys, and we developed the what was it called? The Black Pearl.
The Black Pearl.
The Black Pearl ship for the action figure line, and it won a Toady for best, you know, whatever the hell the category was in. So yeah, we won a Toady for the work we did on that, which was a big deal, you know.
Only Toady I won. I wasn't there to get it. It was we did a Escalade, Cadillac Escalade Power Wheels, and it was all tripped out with a boom box in the back, doors, and it was you know, like the drug dealer's car. And we got an award from, it was like Cadillac and Fisher Price, and they gave it a Toady Award, which is I don't know, that. Those awards are great. They're kind of just like the Oscars. People lobby real heavily for them. But we used to do a inventor meeting and at Toy Fair, and that was always fun because the inventors would come in and pitch their things and with all the toy companies there. And it changed. It definitely got, I don't know, it kind of cleaned its act up, and then it got less of a less partying. And then when the toy building shut down and everything went over to the Jacob Javits Center, it just wasn't quite as cool and as neat. Wasn't as old school. Because you didn't have those showrooms that, you know, were permanent, that were there year round. But it's still, I mean, you know, it's been a while since I've been there. They canceled it the past 2 years, so they just didn't have it. They did virtual stuff.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the world we're living in now, right? So,
yeah.
But here we are doing some more virtual stuff. So, you know, we're trying to make the best of it.
Yeah.
Guys, we are getting close. To kind of get into a Q&A, I did bring some collectors from across the country on to ask some questions. But I've got 2 stories, and these just kind of popped up here recently. So I kind of have one for each of you. I'm going to start with Tim, and you know, we can run these as short or as long as you'd like. But I think these are extremely interesting, and I'm just going to say for Tim, Bob Ferguson.
Okay. Well, we were kind of reminiscing about this before we got online here, but Bob Ferguson ran the research department at Kenner at the time, and research, you know, 30 years ago or 40 years ago, I guess, really, was really different than what you might imagine it is today. So this is where you would take whatever toys we have in development, perhaps our preliminary design models, perhaps even just renderings of toy concepts without even having models. And you'd put together a script or whatever, and we didn't have the resources to do these internally, so we would hire outside research companies to put these in front of sometimes consumers, sometimes the parents, sometimes the mothers and fathers, sometimes the kids, and see how they reacted to it. And there was a big research actually, because of Procter & Gamble also being in Cincinnati, and the fact that some of the Kenner management came from Procter and Gamble. As you might guess, we used a lot of their research methods and resources. So Bob Ferguson was running research at Kenner, and what he had done, unbeknownst to anybody there, is he had set up a couple of these outside research companies. They were fake. They were just names, okay? So he was feeding them projects, and then he was, embezzling the money that was going to these fake companies. But he still had to file a report. So Bob was a real kind of friendly guy, and he would mosey around the office, and he'd always stop in and talk to you, and he would talk, hey, Tim, what are you working on? What's going on? What do you think about that? Do you like what you're working on? Do you think that's going to go anywhere? And everybody was very truthful. He was like, yeah, this is really crap, or I love this, or whatever. So he was getting feedback from the personnel as basically he had his finger on the pulse of the company like nobody else. He knew the things that we liked the best. And so what he did is he wrote reports that said, I think this is a great idea, or I think this is a bad idea based on the research we did, and which never happened. He was just funneling back the opinions he got from the employees, which was really amazing. The point of it is, Kenner was most successful using Bob Ferguson's method of research than any of the research we had done legitimately before or after that time. So that's kind of an interesting story. Eventually he got caught and went to jail for it and everything, but it was really an interesting. And Bob was a really interesting guy. He had so much money. He was funneling off of this whole operation. He had horses. He had race horses. He always drove in limos up at Toy Fair. What kind of, is Bob married rich or whatever? So he had this whole profile.
He wasn't humble at all, is what you're saying.
No. He got to dinner, Toy Fair dinner, and there'd be a dozen people, and he would pick up the tab for everybody. And you got to file expense report, but he didn't care. He was that's the kind of guy he was. He lived big, and he was.
He'd buy everybody drinks at Brothers 3 whenever he was there.
Yeah, because he was asking you what do you like?
Yeah. Yeah.
He was always working the crowd.
And
Brothers 3 is Brothers 3, right. Was that the bar?
That's the bar in the Kroger building.
It was on the first floor.
Next to the Provident Bank.
Yep. Yeah. And it was he'd buy drinks there for everybody. And he had a heart attack, and they put him in the hospital, and they were sending checks to these fake companies, and the checks started coming back. And then all of a sudden, somebody went to one of these fake companies, and I was dating an admin that worked in the department, and it was the rumor went through the company oh, wow. So everybody was laughing a lot. They missed Bob buying drinks. So
yeah,
Doug, I don't know if this is the same. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tim. Go ahead.
That cost not just Bob his job, but his boss's job as well, because there was no oversight in what he was doing. So his boss, forget his name, but he was like a number 2 financial guy at the company. He got the axe, as well as there was another person that worked for Bob who was in on it too. So she got it. So there were 3 major players that got the axe. I think Bob was the only one that went to prison on it, but yeah.
Jeez. Doug, you mentioned your dating habits. That kind of leads me into the next story. Might not be who you know, but maybe it's who you date. I heard you got your hands on something that I think most collectors and fans of Star Wars would be quite interested to hear about.
Yeah, I actually got it. 2 different people that I dated. You kept hearing that people had the script from Star Wars, the original big script, the Lucas script. And I was going out with a admin for a marketing guy, Tom Clark, and so his admin gave me the script. I took it home and I read it one weekend. Then I went out with another admin that was, she was more than admin. She'd get mad if I said admin. But she worked in the preliminary group. And I got it again. So I got to read more of it. And it was, I'd never read like a screenplay script before, and it was about the size of a phone book. So it was always funny. I mean, there was a lot of information there. There was a lot of secret information, but if you knew the person that had the secret information, you could usually find out about it. You know, there was a lot of people talking, and it wasn't like, you know, people were taking names or anything. But it was kind of cool. I remember I got yelled at by the second person because I forgot it. I left it at home and I hadn't brought it in. I think it was a Monday, so I had to drive. I had to go back home to my apartment and get it and bring it back to work. But it was kind of interesting, you know, because a scripted, you know, you're reading dialogue, and it was kind of cool because, you know, Lucas' name was on the front, and it was typed. It looked like somebody had typed it on a typewriter and put it together, and it was about, you know, 3.5 inches thick, and it was about the size of like 8.5 by 11, but 3.5 inches thick. A lot of pages and a lot of scribbled marks on it. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, handmade annotations, and I mean, this was like an original. This was like a script Bible, as they would call it, not just something that was handed out to actors, right? This was.
No, this was very early because this was the storyline that they ended up making 6 of the episodes from. You know, they went and did the first one, which was, you know, 4, and you know, and it was funny because there was stuff in it. You know, things like you know, Jabba the Hutt was supposed to be in the first, or the episode 4. He was supposed to be in the film, but he looked really fake, I guess. They couldn't get him to look real. So, right. You know, he showed up in Empire, and there was a lot of other stuff, and there was a lot of stuff that changed and came in and got modified. But when you read the original storyline, you know, it's kind of cool. The lyrics, or it was kind of, you know, I'll be honest, when I read some of it, I went, wow, this sounds really hokey, because it was. But when you see it, you know, when you see an actor read the dialogue, it didn't sound quite as hokey. But it was, yeah, I got it from 2 different people, which was, I don't think their bosses knew. I don't know. Tim probably knows both the people I got it from. Maybe one of them. You remember?
Later in my time there, I mean, that's what I was doing, is evaluating properties. So Jim Black and I would go out west and see the licensors, and I can't tell you how many times I sat in an office, you know, closed door, because they wouldn't let the script out of the building, you know. So you had to read the script to these things and sit down for 2 hours in some office and try to, you know, I read Jurassic Park, and, you know, in Amblin's office, you know, and just like, I have to read this damn thing, you know.
The funny thing is,
well, the problem with these is that I'm really trying to read. I'm not scanning. I'm not just glossing over it, because I'm looking for things that make sense for toys and what. So I'm really paying attention. So I can remember coming out of this office after like 2.5 hours, and Jim Black's like, "What the hell took you so long?" I said, "I read every word of this thing. You know, I'm not going to miss any of this." Yeah. So yeah, but I was doing that. I can't tell you how many scripts I remember reading. A script at Fox, locked in a room, and at Warner Brothers. You know, all the studios would do that to you. They just wouldn't. And the scripts were all numbered. You had to sign them, and you know, it was a wild thing. Yeah, but common.
This was, I remember they said there were 2 scripts at Kenner, and I got to look at both of them unofficially, bootleg. But the prelim one and the marketing
absolutely
one.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
that's fantastic. That's absolutely amazing, just to be a part of that history and be there down on the ground floor of all that stuff is really, really cool. Guys,
well, I think your viewers know that that's critical. I mean, the toy companies have to be ahead of this stuff by a year. So there's no movie to look at. You're looking at script, you're looking at pre-production images, and you got to make a judgment call on it. And I think, you know, Star Wars was amazing because Bernie banked on, you know, selling paper, you know, for God's sake. You know, there's no way you get the toys out in time. And to take that kind of gamble, that was really, to me, one of the most impressive and important things about Kenner doing Star Wars, is that they did it without even having toys to do it with, you know, and it's pretty amazing.
You know, the one thing I remember vividly in the Star Wars stuff was we'd get these 8x10 glossies from Lucasfilm of the characters when you were working on a character. And, you know, whether it was, I remember a bunch of droids and Yoda. And I always wonder what happened with all those photos, because they were like, you know, they were in a folder and you got them, and they got them under my bed.
No.
Because those they come and get.
I think they're all with people that are watching this right now.
Oh, probably. Yeah, I mean, I had a folder, and it was, you know, I remember the Yoda one, and it was like, here, you need to draw this up. And there was no photos. They said, you know, he's a short guy, and he's got big ears. And, you know, so we sat there and went, okay, what's short? You know, what's, and we made him too big the first time around. And nobody knew who he was. I think I've mentioned this before. And I think the only reason they assigned him to me was they thought he was like not a big character. I always got the secondary droid guys usually, or you know, like something that was getting refreshed. But with Yoda, you know, he was they kept him a secret until very, very late, and then they finally showed us some photos.
Well, guys, that's a great segue into this Q&A section that we're about to have. We kind of, you know, it was fun to hang out, to discuss life at Kenner, life in the toy industry. But with the help of some of the clubs across the country, with the Georgia Alliance, with the California Club and the Empire Club, I do have some people I'd like to ask on real quick, if you guys are ready to talk.
Sure.
You know, these guys are going to hit hard. These are lifelong collectors here that have been dying to ask these questions. So if you guys are ready, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Randy Hancock on to ask the first question.
Great.
You again.
Ooh.
Hey, Randy.
Hey, what's up, Tim? Good to see you, man. Yeah, it's been fun hearing these stories. We really appreciate y'all sharing your time with us. I recently read an article, speaking of Bernie selling paper, from the Washington Post in 1977. It was an interview with Dave Okada. And after hearing these stories, I know you'll never believe he would say something like this, but he said, we're gross, we are lewd in this group. We do not try to stifle ourselves too much. And this lack of stifling often goes into the sexual bathroom type of humor. So my question for you was there ever anything that was, you know, proposed for the Star Wars line that might have been bordering on that type of racy humor?
Oh,
I think we played it pretty straight, actually, on all that stuff. I think, yeah. Now, as far as concepts we developed internally, I certainly remember I vividly remember some obscene things that were done with toys in the office, but you know, they would have never. I can't remember anything weird being done with Star Wars, or you know, going there with Star Wars, but certainly with some of the other concepts we developed in-house. Yes.
I remember some strange things that people did with Yoda's snake. And then I also remember somebody, remember the IG-88, the big one? Somebody put a dildo on his one of his arms, and that was hanging out in their office. Not for production, but yeah, you definitely, there was a lot of weirdness, lewd weirdness stuff, because, you know, the designers, and, you know, they're lewd and weird.
Yeah.
But you know, a lot of that, and a lot of, you know, just, you know, imagine a bunch of minifigures and what they're going to do together. And, you know, that was all over people's offices.
You also have to remember, this was a time before any level of political correctness. Okay. So,
yeah.
There were no fences on anything. You know, it was just
no political correctness, and people were smoking in their cubes.
I started a fire. I started a fire about that incident. So, I was a smoker back then, and would typically light my cigarettes and throw the match into my waste basket because 99.9% of times it would go out. So I lit a cigarette and walked out of my office, which I shared with Jane Abbott at the time. And I don't know if Jane Abbott is just such this dry, droll personality. And so I was in the hall talking to somebody like Dale Goldberg or whatever. All of a sudden she comes running out and says to me, very, very straight with monotone voice, "Tim, there's a fire in your office." So I run back into my office. There's a flame that's 3 feet high out of my garbage can, which was a metal garbage can, thank God. That's what they were all metal back then. So I grabbed a drawing tablet and put it over the top of the thing, and that was it. Nobody ever said anything about, well, you better talk to safety or personnel. There was never any an issue or follow up on that. That I just about had burned down the building, and that damn place would have gone up like it was an old factory wood frame. That thing would have gone up like it would have been gone in 20 minutes. Crazy.
Well, we're glad that did not happen. I think we're all appreciative that it was taken care of. That's great.
Thank you. Yeah.
Guys, you ready for our next guest to come on?
Sure.
I'd like to introduce Daniel Uthman to come on and ask a question.
Hey, Daniel.
Hey, how are you guys doing?
Hey, Daniel, good.
Great.
I have a new coworker who is born and raised in Cincinnati, grew up there, went to elementary school, and he told me a story of a boy in his class whose mom worked at Kenner, and they always wanted to go to his house to play because he would have Star Wars toys at home 9 months before they came out that she had brought home from work. So I was curious, how common was it for people at Kenner who were parents or had maybe grandchildren or nieces or nephews to take things home for them to play with or try out? And if, whatever they brought home, were those usually engineering pilots or some sort of prototypes, or were they the kind of things we would see on the shelves months later?
I think for the most part, they would be production pieces. I think it would be very rare to see anybody send home even first shots or whatever to their kids or whatever. And I think the 9 months might be a little bit exaggerating on that before they came out. And I think it also has to do with the position of the personnel. So if they were in research or something like that, they might get their hands on things like that while they're researching it. So that would happen before production. And when production happens, you could get samples before anybody else. And it was common I always like to make sure that any of the designers working for me got samples of the pieces they did, which is uncommon these days. But I always made sure you worked on something, you got pieces of it. And as a director, I always got a copy of everything that came out of my group, So in addition to whatever went to the designers, so my girls always had. Well, they weren't really into the Star Wars stuff or anything, but they had their share of toys, maybe slightly before other kids did, and a certain volume of toys that the average person wouldn't have. So yeah.
Yeah, you would sometimes, couple of times, not taking them home to kids, but there were definitely some certain things that were collected by the designers and engineers. I remember the Star Wars figure case, Darth Vader. I mean, you guys have them out there. There were a lot of those that were shot in weird colors. They were either when they were trying to get that mold to work right because it had a living hinge on it. And if you had a purple one, or there was one that was multicolors, when they were purging the mold, those were like, people would get those and they'd keep them because they thought, hey, this is cool. And, I remember I had a purple one setting in my apartment for a long time. And a lot of things, because you had engineering pilot shots, you had first shots, you had production pilot shots. So these are all before production. I don't think very many people would take actual product home like that early. Maybe they might get it a little bit before it'd be out in the public, but not much. And they wouldn't want to put it in kids' hands and that kind of stuff. Adults different, very different. I mean, I had certain things that I really liked and would collect, and that's not just Kenner. That's been at any of the toy companies I've been at. You always had some certain things that you just something that was weird, shot in the wrong color or in a different material or something like that that you just hang on to, or sometimes a model because it was a different time. Once something was in production, they let you take stuff. It wasn't under lock and key. And I know as a designer, this goes for Star Wars, but pretty much everything I worked on, I'd have to do paint masters. And there was a set that was mine, and I kept those, and a lot of that stuff I took home, the stuff I liked. But nobody came and got it because once it went into production and you got production masters, the paint masters didn't matter anymore. So it's a different era.
Something I kind of want to tack onto this question, just something that you just brought up, Doug. I've heard this story in the past, and we've seen some examples. Was it fairly common practice? We talked about that, going to Toy Fair and you guys, made friends with other toy designers, or then, you guys, Doug, you've gone through different company phases, or you went to college with other designers. Was it common to maybe make a piece for a friend of yours, maybe, or you guys exchange hey, this is a thing I worked on. Let me run one off for you. And then maybe you send me a piece of yours. I mean, in the pre-production prototype world, we have seen some of that stuff exchange hands, or at least that's the stories that are told as to why these things exist. Is there any kind of truth to that?
But let me jump in here. I think you'd get fired if they found out you did that. Even back then. Okay. You couldn't give it to a competitor.
I never did anything like that. That would have never crossed my mind to trade product.
Maybe once something was in production and another company had something, you might get something out of the store, get you this if you get me that. But once it was in production and out in the public, but if it was something new and a model or something like that, that's probably one of the few things that would get you canned real quickly.
Probably 86 to the entire industry, right? You'd be blackballed from the industry probably at that point, right?
Yeah, because
never work again.
Well, and one of the things that happened in the toy industry, and I moved from company to company. When you gave your notice that you were going to a toy company, you were out the door then. I mean, that minute you were gone.
They cut you off.
They give you your pay and severance, and it didn't even matter if it was a direct competitor. And so what you do is you plan it. And when I left Kenner and went to Fisher-Price, I mean, you do it. You come in on a Monday morning, or you maximize the amount of money they're going to pay you because you get to leave. I planned a vacation to the Grand Canyon between the time I left Kenner and had to start at Fisher-Price, and I got it an extra couple of weeks because I knew what they were going to do. You had to type out your resignation letter. But there was they were competitors, and you didn't share any secrets with those guys. No, I mean, you really didn't. And that is one of the things that could get you canned.
Yeah. Okay. Just something that's come up over the years and collecting prototypes and things of that nature. We've heard stories of oh yeah, well I was friends with this guy that worked at this company, so I was proud of this piece, he was proud of that one, so we just kind of sent each other a piece, kind of thing. Not necessarily insider trading, but yeah, I mean it totally makes sense. That's why that story's always been literally unbelievable. So there you go. I got a couple more guys to come on here to ask some questions. If you guys are ready. A good friend of mine in the hobby up from Canada, Mr. Ross Cuddy, is on board here.
Hey, Ross.
Hey, so thanks, Tim and Doug, for coming and doing these. These are well appreciated in the community and myself personally. So I'll just get right to my question. Was there ever any toy or toy line that you weren't involved with, either at Kenner or even a competitor, that you wish you were, or you thought, man, I could have done that better or something?
Wow.
Wow, that's a good question. Wow.
I think I think of competitive lines that that blew me away, thinking, "Wow, this is just fabulous." When Ninja Turtles did these the characters that flipped over, because Kenner was really the king of doing action features that had built-in features, like the punching action and the DC characters, and we really tried to bring play into the characters with mechanisms and acts like that. I actually think, and I was party to it, was the Ghostbuster, squeeze the legs and the eyes pop out and the tie goes up. Or to me, that was like almost like the epitome of actions that were incorporated into action figures. But the one that really blew me away was when Playmates with Ninja Turtles did the characters that flipped over and then they landed upright on their feet. I'll never forget seeing that at Toy Fair, thinking, my God, this is just, I never seen anything. This was just pure magic. I was blown away by it. I loved it. I thought it was probably the most interesting, dramatic action figure feature I'd seen, certainly up to that time.
For me, one line I would have loved to work on is from Spin Master, Air Hogs, when they came out with all the flying stuff, because they were, I was always trying to do flying toys when I was in the industry, and it's hard to do a flying toy, a good flying toy. And so I was really impressed by Air Hogs. And I was impressed by, and, talking, Canadian company, they're headquartered out of Toronto. And they did some really some cool stuff. I have a lot of admiration towards the company because they would try stuff that some of the bigger companies wouldn't try. And I think they ended up hiring some aeronautical engineers to work on Air Hogs. And I just thought that was a cool line. They did a lot of other cool lines as well.
Yeah, I agree with Doug. I think Spin Master still continues to be the most innovative toy company in the industry for sure. I think those guys are doing a brilliant.
The bigger companies.
They became big because they surpassed the Mattels and Hasbro with the innovation they were doing. It's really credit to that company.
They did
I hope
some
somebody from
stuff.
one of those. I hope somebody from that company, gets to see this, and I mean that's got to be an honor coming from you gentlemen. That's pretty amazing to hear.
Great guys. I've interviewed with them. I know those guys. The triumvirate that runs the show, or well, two of them now, but they're really great guys too, and they get it, and they're just sharp, and I really like working with them.
They've got it in their blood, which being the head of the companies, there's a lot of toy companies now, that the past 3 or 4 presidents of Mattel, I mean, they weren't toy people. They were food people or bean counters. And I don't know about the guy at Hasbro, Golden. I don't know much, but I think he's an entertainment guy. But there were definitely toy people, and there were higher ups in the companies that were toy people. Bernie Loomis was a toy person. Neil Friedman, a toy person. They get into toys. A younger guy, Tim, another Tim, what's his name? He was a big wig at Mattel. And he's at Big. Yeah, Tim Kilpin. Tim Kilpin. He's a toy guy. He was like, very, very high up at Mattel, but he's a toy guy. And those are the kind of people that, the industry needs. You don't need bean counters, and you don't need, people that, you got to have some passion. If you can't have passion when you're doing toys, I don't know what you can't, you have no passion. If you're just a hired gun, and I've seen a lot of hired guns in the business, they come in, there was a period of time where they're all coming from General Mills or they're coming from Procter & Gamble. Then there was a period of time where they're coming from Google and Facebook. And, you know, you don't remember any of those people because they, you know, they weren't toy people. They didn't get the toy side.
I started to get a smirk on my face just thinking about the Goonie Bird, and it's Kenner. It's fun, right? Like
Yeah.
if they're not into it and they're not, you know, enjoying what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
I think that goes within an industry, but it shows when you're not passionate about it, for sure. So I got one more person to come on. Good friend of the club, one of the moderators of the Georgia Alliance page. Jason's been doing some behind the scenes work here with our other guests that were asking questions. So Jason, if you're ready, if you want to come on and you can fire off the last question of the night.
All right, I got
Hey,
the honor.
Jason.
So, gentlemen, yeah, thank you again for doing this. Part of the creative process involves making compromises. Was there ever a compromise you regretted making, whether that's for budgetary reasons or maybe Lucasfilm said, no, you can't do that? And, you know, was there ever a toy you felt would have been better if you just fought harder to get to kind of work against that compromise, I guess?
It's a fantastic question, Jason.
Oh,
They all would have been better.
they all.
You are battling constantly to affect the decision-making process regarding cost and regarding you know, the essence of the toy in terms of its features or whatever. It is a constant battle. It's, you know, you think that what we do is just fun, but man, when you get into some of these battles and people are, you know, cutting the limbs off of you, it's really painful, you know. The advice I always gave to all the designers that ever worked for me, my mantra was always, just remember, we are the mothers and they are the child abusers, okay? Regarding marketing or anybody else is making a decision on it, okay? Costing engineers, whatever. Engineers, I mean, they're just trying to cram it into a box and get it out the door. They're not trying to make it the best toy ever, you know. So you're constantly making compromises. And I can remember one of the worst compromises I made was forced to make was regarding a spacesuit for the $16 man 12-inch figure, and I had designed this really cool space helmet for him. We were doing these accessory outfits, and there were 3 of them, and the spacesuit was going to be more expensive, and the helmet was just really cool, and the marketing people were just flipped out because the value was too great for the cost. They were like, no, it looks too good. You got to cheapen this thing because it looks too good. I'm like, what are you talking about? We get it for the same price. And they really affected the final aesthetics of this thing just to make it look like it was the same cheaper value as the other 2 assortments that we were doing, which I thought was that was murder to me. That was sinful. That was like watching somebody burn a steak, you know. It was terrible. But we've all had those. You know, every designer's gone through that. Yeah.
You know, there's 2 things. There's costing, and there's usually safety, reliability, and those are the 2 people that are trying to make the toy not. I mean, for their own reasons. You know, you'd have to fight with costing. I remember I used to do toys that they'd assort, and Tim kind of alluded to it, like a mix and match where they were selling like 3 together, and they'd assort them together so that the buyers would buy that. And so, of course, marketing wanted them all to be the same cost. So, you know, you didn't want one more expensive than the other ones. So you'd have to dumb them down or do something different to get the mix right. And then when they go out and they be sold, you know, they'd always get out of whack. Like, you know, one would sell really well, one wouldn't. And they were always like, you know, nickel and diming you for stuff. The 2 things that, there were 2 things that you always would fight for. If you could get some glow in the dark, if it was a product that it was cool to have glow in the dark, or vacuum metallizing, chrome, vacuum metallizing. Those are the 2 things that it always cost a lot of money, but it was really made the product really cool. And it was usually the first thing that costing would get rid of or try to get rid of, or safety reliability for some reason would say it wasn't safe, or whenever you wanted to have something that shot. God, what was it? There was something at Kenner. There was a period of time where you couldn't make a projectile at all fun because it had to pass a joule requirement, which meant it just couldn't fire it. It couldn't do anything, and it just wasn't fun. But the safety reliability people and the costing people, they didn't really care about fun. They and I'll be honest, a lot of the marketing people didn't care about fun. They cared about the margin. They cared more about the package, to be honest. They, especially if it was a closed box. It was a closed box. They didn't care about what was in the product. And I worked on Play-Doh, which we couldn't spend any money on anything. I mean, it was Play-Doh and Easy Bake. That was one of the tougher lines to work on. I had to eat that stuff. I was one of the test guys.
Oh boy.
And if the Easy Bake oven stuff, you'd put it in the oven, or I would put it on my windowsill, and it would cook in about a week. It would cook itself. But then we had to eat it to make sure it tasted okay. And they'd let the designers eat it. The engineers would never eat it.
Oh man, the KENNER "it's not fun" thing is kind of bringing me down there, Doug. I don't know what's going on there, but I mean, like you said, bean counters, and I mean everybody's trying to make the buck, right?
Yeah. One of
that's
the worst days in my life at KENNER was the costing manager. I got this phone call from him. God, I can't remember the guy's name. I liked the guy. The guy was okay. I get this phone call from him, and he wants to go to lunch with me. And I'm going, what does this guy want to go to lunch with me for? And he offered me a job to go work in costing. And, that would have been the last place I ever would have wanted to go work. And I think he was thinking, well, if I get designers here, then they can deal with the other designers and not make them feel so bad. But it was like, they just, they could rip the guts out of the toy. But it was fun. You were having fun. I mean, wasn't, and the people, even the people in those other departments, they were good people. They just had a different, set of objectives. And, you wanted to make it as cool as you could and as cool looking as you could. And they wanted to hit the price point. And I hated working on closed box toys because it's like toothpaste. I loved open box because then the consumer saw the toy, and you got to put the money into the toy versus you put this great illustration or this highly retouched photograph on the outside of the box, and you open the box up, and it's like, oh, that's at KENNER when I worked on Play-Doh. It was the first time I ever heard the term slack fill. And that's where you get in trouble when you sell a box, and the box is way bigger than the shit that's in it. and you can get in trouble for slack fill. And with Play-Doh, that happened all the time. You wanted to, justify a nice size box, but there wasn't much in it. So we'd have to roll up the play mat or put the thing in there just right, so it didn't look like we're, it's like when you buy a bag of potato chips and it's like only about a third full. There was a lot of that. There was toys are, it was about margin and about profit. But it was fun.
I'd say you guys did a hell of a job, and in the long run, I think the KENNER stuff, it was a hell of a job done by all for sure. We do have one more question. I think Mark, I think the man behind the curtain wants to come on and ask something. Mark, can you bring yourself on screen?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Just to be clear, I'd never want to come on to anything, but this is simple because my job is also to keep this on time. Very simple question, right? It's a very simple yes or no answer. If you can recall what it was like when you were in the thick of it all, right? It's like pre-85. Did you at any point ever imagine that one day somebody would pay hundreds of dollars for a photocopy that happened to come across your desk or your business card? Did you have any inclination at any point, yes or no? Start with you, Tim.
No, I don't think we ever thought it was culturally significant.
No, definitely no. I mean, it's just, what we were working on almost was looked at as throwaway. You'd play with it one year and it'd be gone. Most toys are not, they're not designed for durability, especially promotional toys like the Star Wars toys. Those were not designed to be around very long. They weren't designed to be taken apart in most cases. A lot of one-way snaps, and so yeah, there's no way I anticipated people being interested in this stuff years and years later. It's kind of wild.
There are tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of us all across the country and the world that are still fascinated, are still learning things about the process that went into this stuff. I mean, they're, finding little minutia differences and variations from toy to toy, from what year it was produced to what factory produced it to which weapon went with which figure. And it's a lifelong obsession for many of us out here, the collecting community, and 30, 40 plus years of die-hard collecting. And Tim and Doug, I can't say thank you enough for you guys taking the time today, taking the time with the Georgia Lions Club, and just being a part of the community. And I hope you guys are getting as much out that we are getting from you, because I could sit here and listen to you guys talk day in and day out. I love hearing the stories. I think everybody agrees with me in that aspect. I hope you guys are enjoying it as well. We want to keep hearing from you guys. We want to keep hearing the stories, and I'm sure you guys have just tons more that you want to tell. At least I hope you do. On behalf of the Georgia Alliance, on behalf of Star Wars collectors everywhere, guys, I do sincerely say thank you. I want to say thank you to Mark Rusciano for helping all the guys who ask questions. Is there one last thing you guys want to say to the collectors out there? Tim, we'll start with you.
Well, no, I feel like it's an honor that you've elevated my work to this level. That you think my contribution to our culture really is significant. So that's really quite a compliment, and I really do appreciate it. So thank all you guys for doing that. It really makes me feel good, and to know your work is appreciated is really special, especially as a designer or artist. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Justin, for inviting us. It's been a pleasure. Thank you. Love the questions. Great group. Thanks.
Yeah, I would second a lot of exactly what Tim said. It's an honor, and it's also really fun. I mean, it was a fun period of time for me, and I just think it's great seeing people interested in it. I never would have thought it would happen, and it was just it was really fun to work on. And now to see that it just continues, and people are paying attention to these little things that you did 40 years ago. It's a gas. It's an honor, and I enjoy this. I'd love to do it again. I mean, it's every time I do it, I remember more stuff that I thought it had gotten buried away somewhere in my head, but something else pops up, another name pops up, and it was just, for me especially, it was my first toy job. KENNER was, and so I have a lot of really good memories, people I met and mentors, and just a fun period of time. It was as a young junior designer working on some really fun stuff, and having a ball. So, and still having a ball. This is fun.
Well, gentlemen, I mean, I just thank you guys. The things you guys have created are displayed in museum-like quality collections all across the world. I personally and countless others have devoted decades and decades into curating these collections and learning more about the history of really your life's work. And we consider you artists, and we proudly display your art in our homes for our friends and family to see. And I cannot thank you enough for coming on and doing this. I hope we can do it again, hopefully sooner rather than later. You guys stay safe out there. Everybody at home watching, stay safe. And on behalf of the Georgia Alliance and the rest of the collecting community abroad, gentlemen, thank you so much. It's been a true honor, and hope to see you again soon. May the force be with you.
Thank you. Big pleasure.
Thanks.